In the spring of 2016, I was gripped by the words of Isaiah 61. It is a prophecy about how Jesus would come to bring good news to the spiritually poor, to bind up the brokenhearted, and to set the captive free. Jesus restores. And as I kept reading, I was struck by the words that describe God's people. It said they will be planted as oaks of righteousness, that he may be glorified, and that broken cities may be restored. And with that passage in mind, we planted our lives in the city of Cincinnati. And what God has done since the summer of 2016 could only be attributed to his grace. From our little living room on Ward Street to 20th Century Theater to John P. Parker Elementary and now 5825 Islington Avenue, God has been faithful to bring restoration in us and through us. Lives have been eternally changed. Former strangers have become a church family, and the fingerprints of God have been forever impressed upon the city we call home. Again and again, the story of the Oaks is steps of faith met with the kindness, faithfulness, and power of God. And I believe that the last 3 years of what God has done in and through our church is just the beginning. Now is one of those moments that I believe God is calling us to take a step of faith, believing that God's past faithfulness is the greatest indicator of his future faithfulness. So let's link arms and move forward to plant roots in this city. Oaks Church, let's pray boldly, live missionally, and sacrifice financially so that more people would experience restoration through the gospel in the city of Cincinnati and the world.
So when we moved here, the thing that got us here at the Oaks was, I'll say, the biblical nature of it.
Yeah, I think that the focus is just really all about Jesus, where other churches have been, just about more about the people and like kind of the hanging out part. But this is really just a focus on Jesus.
In that preaching is biblical. Everyone has a very biblical mindset of what it means to be a Christian. And so when we chose here, and we had visited a few other churches, when we chose here and then we became members here, and we saw that it was authentically biblical, in that there was a real love for people, there was a real love for God's Word, there was a real love for neighbors and to see them come to Christ.
If there's something going on in our lives or in our marriage or in our family, like there's no hesitancy on my part to reach out to Jimmy or to Terry Lee, and I've done this in the past, like just a text like, hey, can you be praying for this? Or
through our MCs, especially the one that I'm in right now, we're being very intentional with knowing the gospel, and not just knowing that what God did for us and what Jesus did for us on the cross, but knowing it well enough to explain to people like it's the back of our hand. And so I've seen how that both deepens my knowledge of the gospel for myself and reminds me of those truths week in and week out, but then also encourages me to tell others that in a very clear and distinct way, and hopefully to make his name known all the more in Cincinnati.
And like having that kind of network, I guess, in place is really nice. It's like, like no matter what happens in your life, whether it's good or bad or joyful or something that's going to be really difficult, like we know we won't be alone.
The way that we prioritize doing things to serve those in the neighborhood, and really reach out and go out into the neighborhood and not just try to draw people in, but the fact that we go to other people, I think is just a really great thing, and it's something that I really appreciate about our church.
And that's like been a really encouraging thing for us, frustrating probably at times too, because to see someone so young and to be so far along and to know where you were in that moment, but to see such a strong group of just loving and encouraging and gospel focused young people at the Oaks has just been awesome.
And so being at the Oaks, specifically the people that we have been in small group with in our missional communities, they have been, I think, some of the most intentional persons at challenging us to take our faith seriously, to think through the things that we believe, and to put into practice the things that we say that we believe.
Having a church family in a church community without a physical building is definitely a challenge. And I think we've done a great job with it so far, but not having a space that we can call our own and that we can kind of use as essentially a base of operations for everything that the Oaks is, because the Oaks has so much outreach and is involved in so many things. It's really been difficult. So I think having that base of operations would be huge.
So I think what I'm most excited for with the Roots Initiative and looking at getting a permanent space and a permanent building is just the way that we can interact with the community. And the fact that we're looking for a space that isn't just, open for 2 hours on Sunday and see you next week. But it's a lot more multi-purpose than that, what we're looking for. And so I think the opportunity to interact with the community really changes when you have that.
The thing that excites me the most about the Roots Initiative is our Equip classes. We'll have the opportunity to leverage our resources, time, talents, and treasures to encourage and challenge us to grow deeper. It'll hopefully encourage and challenge both believers and non-believers, members and non-members to grow deeper in their faith and to explore relationships with God.
The fact that we might have a space that all the moms can come to during the week, a place that I think that, especially in the winter and COVID and all of that, just a place where I can go and be around other nurturing women, other people that are loving and kind of chasing Jesus like we are, would be really, really amazing.
The sense of ownership of having a building in a specific community and knowing that this is your turf, this is your ground, this is your neighbor, this is your permanent location to minister in. There's a sense of ownership that comes with that that I do think fuels ministry.